primarily aim of this unit is to develop your understanding of how to prepare programs to support education and training. So this is a practical module. We are going to be using the training cycle here and the different stages for you to understand how to create education and training programs, and there will also be examples from different industries that will be part of this unit as well, so that you could see the training cycle in action. This is the purpose of these practical examples that we are going to be discussing during this unit as well. Okay, so let's get started with the overview of Unit 2. Again, recapping here about the purpose of education and training programs. The primary purpose, what I would like you to always keep in mind, is to help your learner move from the current point A, where they currently are, or what their current existing knowledge, skills, and capabilities are, to where they want to be, to what their desired knowledge, skills, and capabilities are. So I would like you to think of the training and development program as a journey that your learners are being taken on. They start at point A, and by the end of the training session, they are at point B. For instance, they will have met their learning objectives with your support. So it is a good practice to always think of education and training programs as ways for you to close that learning gap, that point from A to B, and to take your learners on a journey, ensuring that they reach the destination where they have acquired the necessary knowledge, they feel confident in the skills that they have been given, for instance, as a result of attending the training and development session, and they have improved their capabilities. So when it comes to your learners' feedback, this is also another topic that we're going to cover as part of this unit, because collecting learners' feedback actually allows you to, first of all, move them from point A to point B, as we just discussed, quicker and in a more effective way, in a way that helps them meet their learning objectives. So collecting learners' feedback is actually a crucial step in the process of being effective in our roles as training and development practitioners. So think about what feedback can give you. Once you collect feedback from your learners, first, it gives you the necessary data to improve your delivery style, to improve what the actual training program consists of, if you feel that is necessary. And it also allows you to review the practitioner's performance, which in this case is your own performance, right? So yes, it is about your delivery style, it is about the curriculum of the actual program, but there might be things that you may receive feedback on which can help you improve your own practice, that go beyond just the delivery style. For instance, just to give you an example, because I am a qualified trainer, a qualified coach, and I have personally delivered hundreds of training and education sessions through all the years. And one of the things that come to my mind while we're covering this slide is, for instance, your posture, your tone of voice, how quickly you speak, for instance. And just to give you an example, these are things that you may even be able to attend training on as a part of your role, depending on what organization you join. Because many organizations nowadays, they actually train you. Not only do they teach you how to, they actually teach you how to be effective in your delivery when it comes to verbal and body language communication. So I'm just giving you an example here so that you know what's available to you when it comes to developing your own skills. And of course, during this unit, we are going to be talking about the ways you can collect learners' feedback so that we can use it to improve ourselves, but also to improve our training and education programs. Okay. Now, we are going to go through the training cycle, and we are going to go through the individual stages. There are 4 stages in total, which will serve as a guideline to you when you are creating your first education and training program. You always start at stage 1, which is identifying the learning needs of, for instance, the organization or the actual team or the learner, if you are going to be delivering one-on-one individual sessions. It is always, this is the very first stage. We always start by identifying what the learning needs are, which then helps us, based on the needs that we have taken into account, it helps us to then identify the learning objectives, or in other words, the outcomes of the training and education program, because every training and education program always communicates the key objectives or outcomes that the learners will have met upon completing or upon attending the education and training program. Again, it is also useful, we just spoke about the purpose of a training and education program being helping the learner move from point A to point B. Again, here we are going to be looking at what the existing skills and capabilities and knowledge are versus what the desired knowledge, skills, and capabilities are, so that our training program can help us close that gap and move the learner from point A to point B. So this stage here, stage 1, is a very interesting stage, and during the sessions that are part of Unit 2, we are going to be also talking about the different methods for you to conduct learning needs analysis. There will be examples, and you'll find that very interesting. There will be, again, practical examples from different industries and the methods that different companies use to conduct learning needs analysis, on the basis of which the training and development practitioner can then specify the individual learning objectives and outcomes of their programs. So this is the very first stage of the learning and development, the training cycle. Okay, now we're going to move to stage 2, designing training. Here it becomes exciting because you can put your creativity into action. Again, we're going to be talking about learning styles. So how do your learners or delegates learn? So this can be taken into account when we are designing the curriculum, when we are designing the actual content of the training program, when we are selecting the different learning activities, because the activities that help our learners learn need to appeal to their learning styles. As imagine if you are a visual learner, or imagine as a practitioner, you have identified the learners' needs, the learner styles within your delegate group, and most of them are visual learners. But the way you've designed the session, the way you've designed the program, is by having activities which involve you talking most of the time. And whilst this could be useful to people who are auditory learners because they can listen to you and this is how they absorb the information, then they can act on it. Visual learners, they will need to look at perhaps videos, they will need to be looking at PowerPoint slides, they will need to be engaged through visuals rather than auditory delivery. So this is just an example of what you should be considering when you're designing training. So the learning styles, and then from the learning styles, and of course the objectives that you have specified, then you work for the curriculum, the activities, and also the different resources. What do we mean by resources? If you are facilitating face-to-face training, I would like you to think about, for instance, flip charts, pens, workbooks, for instance. So these are some of the physical resources that you should be taking into consideration when you are designing the training program. And if you're delivering the program purely virtually, then the resources could be a platform that allows you to deliver it, and perhaps PowerPoint slides exported into, let's say, PDF format, sent to the delegates in advance or after the session. So these are training and education resources. These are the aspects that we are going to be discussing during Unit 2, and that is part of the second stage of the training cycle. Now, the third stage is all about delivering the training. Here we are going to be talking about creating a positive learning environment and also creating an inclusive learning environment. We are going to talk about diversity and inclusion as key concepts that we should be mindful of when we are engaging the learners, the verbiage that we use, even the activities that we have selected to support us in delivering the training. And then we are again going to be taking learning styles into consideration and learning preferences also. So this is very much about the delivery of the training and also your delivery style. Things that you should be again thinking about is whether you would like to have an element of mentoring included in your delivery style, whether it would be appropriate to bring in personal examples like I did a couple of moments ago, or whether, depending on the training that you're facilitating, whether you need industry examples. So stage 3 is very much about the delivery of the actual content and your delivery style, as well as an education and training practitioner. Okay, now the fourth stage is about evaluating and assessing training. So after you have delivered the training, it is important that you identify whether the learning outcomes have been achieved. So we're going to be talking about some of the ways, some of the practices that organizations and practitioners use in order to measure or assess whether the learning outcomes or objectives have been achieved. And just to give you an example, one way of looking at measuring performance is by monitoring it. And the workplace, which could include observation, it could include monitoring behavioral change, for instance, whether the attitude of the attendees has changed and whether their performance has improved, or if they're actually having to demonstrate that they have learned, for instance, key information applicable to their role. It could even be tests that they will have to attend. So there are all sorts of ways that the learning outcomes can be evaluated, and that would also depend on the type of training that you are delivering. Also, as a part of the evaluation and assessment process, it is important that we think about areas of improvement of the actual program, but also when it comes to your own practice as a training and development practitioner. Okay, so we are evaluating 3 things here: whether the learning outcomes have been achieved. That is very important indicator here that we should be evaluating as a part of stage 4. Then evaluating the effectiveness of the actual program and whether any improvements are necessary, and also evaluating your own practice as well. Okay, now